Hello everyone and welcome back to Jacqs. Thanks for joining me today. I have a design team project for Country Craft Creations to share with you, and I'll be using G45 Cottage Life collection. So here is the journal that I created. This is a bit of a hybrid. You have a traveler's notebook as well as places to put photos that is more like a mini album style. And then you actually have a wraparound cover that is a bit of a folio. So it's a really nice hybrid journal. The size of the journal is about 4.5 inches wide when you consider the cover. However, the pages themselves are the traditional size of a traveler's notebook, which is 4.25 by 8.25 inches long. So as I mentioned, we have a wraparound cover. On the front, I added some sheer ribbon that you can use to close it. We have the beautiful paper on the front here. On the right-hand side, I added rosettes to cover the spine for the wraparound. On the left-hand spine, I've added 2 different types of ribbon. We have a really nice scalloped edging here down the side, and then the top lace, it has pearls down the center. You can see that more on the back side here. Really pretty. Where I've also added a Dare to Dream sticker from the collection. I just love the little peeking over of the rosettes and ribbon. When we open this up, you'll see on the front here, I've added one of the chipboard pieces, and I've taken a lot of the chipboard backing off so that that would have a nice thin profile, and then added a little glitter dot here on the side. On the front wraparound cover, I've added the signature page here where it says Living the Simple Cottage Life. So pretty. I love the papers in this collection. Absolutely gorgeous. And because this is a wraparound cover, I added additional score lines so that it would make it round instead of square. So you get this neat little fan-like design here. I really like how that turned out. So when we open the cover fully, on the left-hand side, we have a little flap here that has a small little pocket. And inside, I added a tag that I had in my stash. And we have ribbon detailing. This flips open once more. On the inside of that flap, I kind of just did some decorating just as a nice little break. So we have a little frame here at the top where you can add a photo. We have a little banner that says lovely. And then down below, here is another image from the ephemera piece that I've actually turned into a little tuck spot and added this little tag, Keep Life Simple. It's another little ephemera piece in the collection. This area right here might look like a pocket, but in fact, this is a flip down. It's held by a magnet. So you could add a photo here if you wanted, as well as at the top. Your magnet is hidden under this sticker element. And this is a waterfall. So when you flip this up, you'll have plenty of room to add a 4x6 photo here, as well as on these 2 mats that follow. So here and underneath it, and here and underneath that as well. You can add 4x6 photos. Underneath all of that, we have this little small pocket, and I've inserted a little journal card. It says, enjoy the little things. Really, really gorgeous paper, but that's a nice addition to this. And let's take the journal itself. We're going to flip this over to the left-hand side, and what you'll see is like a hidden pocket. And on this pocket, I added one of the elements that I cut out of the paper and made it into a little tuck spot, holding this cute little image. And then in the pocket, I added a envelope and a card that I had in my stash, just as if this was something that she was going to mail out, or maybe it's something that was received, just a little bit of memorabilia. And I think the colors in this went really well with the collection. Here's this gorgeous, gorgeous paper. So that just tucks under there. Okay, now let's look at this super, super fluffy journal. I am loving this. I put lots of thought into this. On the front here, what you'll find is a handmade paper. It has sewing detail and even some like glitter pieces in the actual handmade paper. I added the sticker that says Dreaming of Cottage Life down the side. Now, I didn't put anything on it because I like the break of all the patterns and having this nice solid place for your eyes to rest. But then when you open this, you start to get into the wonderful, beautiful colors and designs. So on the back of that, I added another little border of florals down the side. We come to a doily, and I've added one of the little sticker elements along with a floral die cut and then some lace behind that. Just did a bunch of layering on it. And I actually used 2 doilies, and what I ended up doing was creating a little hidden pocket there and put this little element in there. May your rambles be sweet. So if you look at this, you really wouldn't know that that is actually a little pocket. Super cute. Now our first page has 2 little cards that I've included from the cut-aparts, and I have sewn around them. I've sewn on some of the pages, as you can see here, and even here. I didn't sew on every page because I just wanted a little bit of added texture, and I also created deckled edges, which also added texture, so I didn't sew on those pages. But back to this page, I used these little cut-aparts to make little pockets, and I've added little journaling cards that I had in my stash. Just put a little ribbon here at the top of each of those, but they match the collection really well. And this is the same. I created this layered pocket look that also has ribbon behind it, and it really just makes this whole element pop. So we have a side pocket. Here is one of the 4x6 journaling cards. I sewed around this. I don't know if you'll be able to see the sewing. Here on the back you can. I even took some lace and I sewed across the top, and it's right where this big window is in the 4x6, and I just thought that was really cool to add some textural element to the 4x6 card that actually looks like there's a window there. On our next page, I inserted a seed envelope, and I decorated this up with a scrap of the Graphic 45 collection. I added this tulips journal card that I had in my stash, and I did a lot of rub-ons in the journal itself, so you'll see that here, kind of messy rub-ons. There's the butterfly, that's a rub-on, and then I added this grow embellishment here that's kind of like see-through. It's kind of neat. It's very dimensional. This flips open to the right. I added some paper that I tore on the edges. Wanted to keep it a little bit rustic, and I added a scrap piece of paper in the pocket just for journaling. And then this is attached to this graphic paper that I coffee dyed, and on this I created a belly band using an element from the cut-aparts. And then I put lace on the back of that. And inside, I printed out a digital element that I had, and I made this postcard really small. It was perfect for this. I tore some of the paper collection, added that here, and added this Sweet Rambles sticker. You could journal or add a photo on the back side. And then I also added one of the butterflies from the collection here onto the actual graph paper. This flips open to the left, and on the back side, I used one of the ephemera pieces to create a little tuck spot here, added a little glitter dot there. And here's another digital element that I printed out. I actually took it and wrinkled it up because I wanted it to look like a receipt that you might carry in your pocket, but then later realize you want to keep it. So you stick it into your journal to hang on to that. On our next page, I added this cute little frame that swings out. I added it with a little button brad. These little button brads are so adorable. My sister gave me those. So that's at the top, and here I used this element from the cut aparts and made it a belly band as well. I printed out a digital element that I had and added on this element from the collection. Just stapled that on there, inked this up to make it a little grungy, and then you can write or add a photo on the back side. You know, I added some items that you might see in a female journal. And if you notice here on the edge, we have the deckled edge, and you'll also really be able to see it on the page coming up, but these two are deckled edge. On the back side of that, I added a little flip up that it says notes up here with a little pen, really cute, and this flips down so you can journal in there. It's like secretive journaling. I did add one of these sticker elements to the front of that, so adorable. And then I added some butterfly stickers that I had in my stash, as well as this puffy bicycle with flowers. Of course, if you're in a cottage, you have a bicycle filled with flowers in the basket, and I just love that. So, of course, then I used a book page that had flowers, and I thought that went really well with the theme. I took this ephemera piece, and it's actually a tuck spot, so you could tuck something secretive back there, but it says enjoy the little things. On the back side of that, I added another ephemera element here, and I created a little envelope out of the book page, but look how gorgeous those flowers are. It just really goes with this collection. And then on the inside, I have one of the ephemera pieces, and I added a Tim Holtz tag. Just adhered those together with some of the twine that I got from Country Craft Creations. Nice little secretive spot there. On this side, we have some coffee dyed paper where I did another rub-on. I just love adding that to the paper. I sewed at the top and the bottom of this page as well. Here's another rub-on, little buttons. And then in this page, at the top, what we have is a hidden paper clip, and I created this to where you could have a little dangle. So I added this little clock charm. I just thought that would be something you might find in a cottage. And it's actually holding down this removable corner piece. So it's like a little bookmark. I added lace to the front and the back, but it actually holds your items in there without the hidden paper clip, so you could do it either way. I just added this for more decoration. But what we have in the little tuck spot there is this little combination that's held together by a fashion pin or a ball pin, so you could take any of these elements off if you wanted to. We have a little metal tag here. I did some stamping and inking on that. You could add something to the back if you wanted. These two pieces here were from my digital collection, and I printed those out. Did some inking to a little, you know, age them a little bit. I added a ephemera heart here from the collection. This is a state alterations tag, and I actually printed it. It's front and back, but you can open it up and do some secret journaling. You can add a secret photo, and because this is a fashion pin, you can take it off to do your journaling in here. So that makes it really handy. And then on the back side, we have this little advertisement. It's like this is something you want to have made, and then you have your alterations tag to put all your details on. And then I added coffee dyed paper to the back of that for more journaling. So this will just tuck right up under there. Really cute. On the back side, I added one of the 4x6 journal cards from the collection. I sewed around this and even add a little bit of ribbon here at the top just for some decoration and some more texture. And then at the bottom of this page, I added one of the labels from the ephemera pack with some glitter dots. So then you could write about, like if you added a photo on the back, you could write what it is down below. So this all just tucks together, and you know, it's fine as is, or you could add the hidden paper clip. Either way. On our next page, I used one of the chipboard pieces to create a belly band with some of the paper. I added twine to each side because there were holes in the chipboard. And I am telling you, I just love this look. It's just really cute. It's like it's wrapped around a little package or something. Inside, I created this tag. So I had this tag in my stash. I added a rub-on here, like a little perfume bottle. And then I actually had little perfume bottles in my stash. So I took this, it was a sticker. I added acetate to the back side. And then I tied it up here with one of these little tags that I did stamping on. I think this is so cute. So it's like the tag goes with the perfume bottle, and then it's just tied on there. Super cute. On the back side, I added a little bit of a border sticker here. Then I took the postage little cardstocks. I added one here as a little tuck spot, and then this one I actually cut out of the paper collection to just add it there. On our next page, I added a transparent bag, and I folded the bottom up to make a little tuck spot here in the front. Added a border sticker here, and these are two of the journal card elements, but I left them together to create this little booklet. So you could add two little photos in here, added a little lace here at the top. Just really cute. And inside our bag, I created another little booklet. Here's one of the cut apart cards. I added some corner stickers. And then inside, you could add a photo, you could journal, and then on the back side, you have room as well. Now, if you see, here's the bag. What I liked about it, I love this paper. It's so gorgeous with all the florals. And I didn't really want to cover it up. So I used this, you know, transparent bag, which actually has lace flowers on there. I hope you can see that. It's so pretty. And I just thought that went really well. So you could still see the flowers, but it did enhance it a little bit. So on the back of that, I created a little pocket, a V cutout pocket. And inside that, I added this little paper, added one of these sticker pieces there. You can get a lot into this little pocket. I added a sticker border there and another sticker element here. And as you can see, this has a deckled edge as well. On our next page, I created a little waterfall, and this one is a little different. It's called a push-pull waterfall. So even though this has a tab on it, like you would pull it, you actually push this up, and it looks like that underneath it, and then you pull this down. So this is a different way to create a waterfall, and I absolutely love it. Super cute. You can add photos to the front and the back of these little photo mats. Now we're at the center of our traveler's notebook, and I took this beautiful image from the signature page and added that here and created two pockets with it. So here I cut down this journal card to add it. And then here is the other journal card that I cut down to add cottage life. Really pretty. I just love the addition of this gold leaf vine here. Just really sets off these yellow florals in this beautiful paper. And of course, to the string, I added 2 of the stickers back to back. This is my happy place. And I laminated this and then cut it out to add nice little dangle. On the back side of that, I created this little scene like a bedroom. We have our little dresser here. We have like a mirror, and the dresser, the drawers actually is a little tuck spot where I added one of the little ephemera pieces. And on top of the dresser, I added the pitcher and bowl here, and then I added this rub-on of a brush. Like that's on the top of the dresser. Super cute. I just love that. It was a lot of fun to create. And this is a ephemera piece. And what I did here was I backed it with vellum so that you could see the back of this paper because I absolutely loved it. But you can still tuck something under there. So if you wanted to add a photo, you still have that capability. But I just say it's a little mirror because of the dresser. And then I used a rub-on to add Hello Beautiful there. On our next page, I added one of the frames from the collection. And again, you can tuck a photo into that. I left that open, added vellum on the back side of that as well. Here's an ephemera piece I added to the front of it. And then I added some coffee dyed paper here that flips open so you could do some journaling down below. This also has the deckled edging. On the back side of that, we have a tuck spot where you could just pull items out from the side. I included this 4x6 journal card. Or you could unfasten it with this little brad and string closure. These flip down. I added a butterfly here from the collection, and this one will flip up. Nice little place to journal. You could add little photos there, and then you have this gorgeous, gorgeous paper here where you could add a photo. On the bottom of that twine, I used 2 of the little stickers back to back so that you have a nice little end. On our next page, I added a little decorative strip here where I created a little side tuck. And I used this journaling card that I had in my stash and added a glassine bag to the back that I cut down to make it the right size. I did some sewing around the card. Just love having glassine in the journal. So great place to journal there. On the back of this page, I created a top tuck with some of the paper collection. I printed out this digital piece and cut it into a tag. Added a little bit of ribbon here at the top. I just love this on the vellum. It's super pretty and it's a metallic, so it's kind of sparkly, really nice, but a great place to tuck something there. I used a decorative border punch there, as well as here and there. And then on this page as well, I just created 2 little pockets, and inside I added some little photo mats that I had digitally and printed out. But just really pretty, a nice place to capture your photos, and you could even journal on these if you wanted to, or on the back side. On the back side of that, I created a long belly band, and this has hidden journaling as well. So you flip the belly band open to the right, and this flips open to the left. So you could add like little photos here. You could add some more decorative paper if you wanted to, like that, or even on the sides. And you could even journal on this. So it's just a nice little happy surprise there. And then underneath the belly band, I have a journal card that I had in my stash digitally, printed that out, and I sewed around that. This is so beautiful. It went perfect with this collection. So there's what it looks like without anything in it. Actually, the item on the belly band is a printable that I had as well. And then I had these guest checks in my stash, and I just added some ribbon and some border strips at the top. I did some inking to grunge it up a little bit. Then I added these 2 stickers from the collection and one of my vintage tickets that I had on hand. Thought that was cute. You could certainly journal or add photos to the back side of this. And then on this side, we have our little coffee dyed paper. I did some more rub-ons here, tone on tone. It's actually a little butterfly with some script, really pretty. And then on the back side, I did some more rub-on. I made it a little messy. I love that. I think it's so cute. Some of the rub-ons that I used are from the Dollar Tree, so don't think that you have to go anywhere expensive to get them. They are available there. On our next page, I tore out some note paper, glued that down after I inked it, and then I did some rub-ons over top of it and up here in the corner as well. Just love how that looks. On the back, we have the book page. Again, you'll see that deckled edge. And I had these printables already printed out, and I just went ahead and added them here because I thought the roses went with the Graphic 45 collection, and it has this adorable little library card. I printed this too small for what I was working on at the time, but it fits perfect here. I love it. So we have a nice little pocket there for our card. Now on the next page, I did something a little different, and I used little strips down the page to create, like, you know, one of those boards that has the cross, that has like the strings or the straps across, and you can tuck little things under it. Let me show you if I take everything out. So there's what it looks like. These are open strips, and then I put strips over the bottom and the top. Here I added this little clip to the other side, but on the back side it had this open area here, so I took a sticker and added that here as a little dangle. And then these items I had digitally and printed those out to add. So what I did was kind of just weave it in the strips, and it actually holds in there really well. Kind of like one of those little boards, you know. This is an actual little envelope. I tore a piece of the paper and put that in there just for fun. Look at how cute. And then that goes there. I love this. It was so much fun to do and easy. On the back side of that, this is where you'll see the rest of that clip. And number 3, this might be a Tim Holtz clip, I'm not sure, or spare parts. But what I did on this page was actually just take some different papers, added them here like a little notepad. Some of them I used the deckled edge, some I just tore, just to give a variation. Along with the handmade paper, I stapled that together at the top. Here's the gorgeous paper you could add photos to, whatever. And then this just tucks under there. So you just have this nice little notepad that you can pull out and make notes on. We are at the other side of the graph paper, and what I did here was I took some of the Graphic 45 paper, I did a torn edge at the top and made this into a little pocket. I printed out this digital element. It's actually a train ticket. So I inked it and scored it so that you could fold it. I thought that was cute. I tied that with some twine onto this tag that I had in my stash that was of a map, and I just thought that went together really well, and just tucked that in there as if she was going somewhere, and she has it here for safekeeping. And then on the back side of that, I used one of the chipboard pieces that was a butterfly. I glued it on the tips of the wings, printed this element out. of the, like a butterfly slide. I added this number to it here. And you can glue this together so it looks like a slide and you're seeing through each side, or the way I did it was actually left the inside open so that you could do some more secretive journaling in there. So I just love that. Super cute. On this page, I created a little file folder that you can flip open. Inside, we have a little pocket here. I added another one of my digital elements that I have in my stash, a Merchants National Bank receipt. So I thought that would go perfect with some play money that I grunged up and thought that would be fun to have in here. So she has her little bank receipts there and her little cash there she's hiding in her journal. And I also made this a tuck spot. So I added this journal card underneath. You can just tuck right underneath there. Added these little stickers here as decoration. On the back side of that, I created a little pocket, but this pocket actually flips open to the left. So it's kind of like a hidden spot. You could add photos here. And here I added one of the ephemera butterflies, some ribbon. And then in the pocket, we have one of the journaling cards from the collection. And then I added this paper that I had in my stash and just took one of the ephemera pieces and glued that little heart on there. I think that's so cute. And that just tucks down in there. Really cute. I like that. It looks like that's the pocket, but then that flips open. So we're at the back of the doily here. And I did the same thing, added a sticker with some glitter dots, a die cut floral piece with some lace. And again, that has a hidden spot. I love it. And we're at the end of our traveler's notebook. So that's the whole project. As you can see throughout it, I created many different styles of ways to use your pages. Some people don't know exactly how to decorate their pages, and this gives you plenty ideas on ways that you can do that. So this just wraps over. So one of the ribbons goes to the back on the left, one goes to the right. You just wrap that around. And this one gets wrapped around as well. Bring it to the front and tie your bow. I'm not the best bow tire, so there we go. All right. So there it is. This is my cottage life journal. I absolutely love how this turned out. I do have a tutorial following this portion of the video. I hope you stick around to create one. And thanks a lot for joining me. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I would love to hear from you on what you think. So don't forget to comment as well. All right, now on to the tutorial. For this journal, I'm going to be using G45 Cottage Life. I recently received this in my design team haul, and I just immediately thought about doing a journal. I was going to do a ladies' desk journal, but I haven't really landed on exactly what I'm doing. I do know I want it to be traveler's notebook size, and that's the standard size of 4 1/4 by 8 1/4. So that's the basis of what I'm going to start with. So the first thing I've done is pulled out one of each of the design sheets that's available in this collection. I cut off the strip, and then I even went through my stash to pull out some other pieces that will go with the journal. So I'll just go through and show you what I have pulled. I have a small doily and this beautiful large doily. I also pulled out a seed packet. I picked these up at Target. And I pulled some book pages. Now this one was a book I got from the Dollar Tree, and I'm not really liking this crab, but I do like the natural images that are on here. I could certainly easily cover that up. But because of the size of this page. I'm not quite sure how this is going to work in the journal, but I pulled that out just in case anyways. I have these beautiful landscape images, and I thought this would go great with a cottage because on the back it says herbs in winter, and this one is design a formal herb garden, and you know, that's kind of cottage life-ish. Then I pulled some colored paper that I have. I pulled these out with some lines. I'm loving this hot pink. It goes especially well with this one. And then the light pink lined paper. I have a little bit of parchment paper. I did find some handmade paper in my stash, and I thought this blue went with the collection as well, so I may or may not use that. I have some coffee dyed paper. I like this one with the blue lines. Some grid paper there, and here's some other grid paper. I love this ledger paper. I just love the colors of it. I thought that would go with it pretty good. And especially like this one, when you look at the coffee dyed papers, it goes really good with this page. Look at this yumminess. Ugh, yeah, love it. And then I have some, I'm not quite sure, this is some type of drawing paper. I just love the color. It's really yummy. And then I have these pages from We Are Memory Keeper Typecast notepad. And I thought these might be fun in there. So I may or may not use those. So that's where I'm starting with the journal. Okay, I have gone through all of my papers that I pulled out, as well as the Graphic 45 papers, and I selected the ones that I want to use. After I selected all of my pieces, the next thing I did was cut them down to the Traveler's Notebook size. Now the size that I'm using is a standard Traveler's Notebook, and that is 8.5 by 8.25. You score down the center, and that would be at 4 1/4. Then you fold your pages in half and burnish, and what you end up with is the standard Traveler's Notebook page, 4 1/4 by 8 1/4. So any of the Graphic 45 pages I cut to this size. I did the same with some of the extra pages that I pulled out that I wanted to use. I also used some pages that were smaller, like I'm going to use this seed packet. I have a page here that measures 8 by 4 3/8. I fold down the center, and I'm going to use that. I even have doilies that aren't the full size. I really like a mixture of different sizes in my journals. It just adds interest. So after I selected all my pages, cut them down, I then took my pages and I put them in the order that I wanted them. So I'm using this handmade paper to be like a cover in the front. Then I used a doily, a Graphic 45 page, and then I added some coffee dyed paper. I'm also going to use the seed packet and attach it to this paper. So then you end up with like a little flip out. And then I continued to do that until I had all the pages that I wanted to use in an order that I liked. As you notice, I'll have a Graphic 45 paper, I'll have a different type of paper in between the Graphic 45. That way, it just adds interest, and you're not just seeing all of these solid colored papers, one right after another. It's great to have pages in between that are solid so that your eye has a place to rest. The next thing I did was use a deckled edge ruler that I had from Westcott here, and it has this nice deckled edge. I went along some of my pages. Here you can see I did that on the Graphic 45 page. Here I did a book page. Here's another Graphic 45 page that I did that in. I really just like having the softness of the deckled edge in between some of the pages that are just cut straight. It just, again, adds interest to your journal. So I did that periodically throughout, but not on every page. I thought about doing every page, but I changed my mind. I just wanted the interest there to be like little spurts throughout the journal. The next thing that I'm going to be doing is identifying what I actually want on each of the pages. As an example, you'll see here on the front, on the handmade paper, I already added a sticker from the paper collection that says Dreaming of Cottage Life. I really like that on the edge of this handmade paper. For additional examples, on the doily, I'm adding this piece that has some extra lace that I just had in my stash. I added a die-cut floral piece and then one of the stickers from the collection, and that's going to go on here. What I'm going to do is go through and paper clip them to the pages that I want to add them, such as this one. On this full page, I'm going to add 2 little cards from the collection, and I'm making those pockets. I'm going to have one pointing to the right and then one going to the left. Now the tags inside I've added from my stash, but they go really great with this collection. So this will have Graphic 45 Cottage Life as the main collection, but I am going to mash in some other paper collections or some other products from other brands that I have in my stash. And that's what I've done with the tags. So these will be little pockets. What I'm going to do is, like I mentioned, is paper clip those in on the page so that I know where I want them. Then what I'm going to do is go and sew all around the pages. I really want that added texture for this journal. In places that I can, I'll be sewing on the additional elements that I'm adding to the pages as well. I'm not going to sew every piece because I do, again, like the juxtaposition between some sewing and some not being sewn. It just really adds a great depth to the journal texture. So those are the pieces that I'm going to be doing next. Okay, I thought I would do just a little recap of where we are at this moment. So we've identified our main paper collection, Graphic 45 Cottage Life. We've added some additional papers, such as this handmade paper. We have cut our papers down to the size that we want them, and we've put them in the order that we want them to be. The next thing we did was added some decorative edges using our decorative edge piece, or you could hand tear. You can see that here. And then what I did offline was I sewed some of the elements. So I did a straight stitch. I don't know if you'll be able to see it on this card or not. Maybe on the back side you can see some of the stitching. But I did it on some of the pages, not all of them, just some of them. You can see it maybe around here, just a straight stitch. I did like every other page, the pages that had the straight edges, and then I did some of the actual ephemera pieces. So now that those are sewn and I'm pretty much satisfied with how all of the pages are, what I then did was I went through each page and identified if I wanted to put something on the page. Embellish it, add ephemera, do stamping, things like that to each of the pages. So that's what I've been doing, and I'm going to go through each of those with you and kind of just give you a rundown of what I did, and some of them we're actually going to be putting together as we go along. So let's do that now. So on this handmade paper, the only thing I did there was add this border strip that was a sticker that says Dreaming of Cottage Life. I really like that. I thought about putting something else here, but I just haven't landed on that yet. I don't even mind if this stays simple because the paper itself is quite interesting. It has silver glitter flecks in there, and we have the sewing, so it's already interesting. And you don't have to decorate every page. It's good for the eye to have a place to rest. So on the inside, I didn't do anything. The next thing we come onto is the doily that I added, and I'm going to actually take this out. I'm going to kind of be taking this apart as we go along because it's quite thick, so this is going to be a very thick journal. Okay, so for the doily, what I'm doing is I have a bag of scrap fabrics and ribbons that I keep here in my desk, and I've pulled from that some lace that I had in there, and then I had this kind as well. I'm going to do the same thing on the front and the back of this doily. This like blue tulle from the Dollar Tree. So I have a sticker for the front and the back, and then I used some die cuts that I had for these flowers. And I even took Wink of Stella and just rubbed on the flowers to give them a little bit of a glitter shine. I don't know if you'll be able to see that or not, but it is there. So that's something that you could do as well. So now I'm just going to adhere these down to the doily. Just going to use our glitter glue. I'm hoping that will hold it. And I'm going to add glue where the die cut is. Okay, so that will be one side and that will be the other. Now this one did have areas where the holes would come out, and I thought about putting some little pop-up dots on there. I think we'll put that on once we get everything else done on that page. It's kind of hard to tell right now. Okay, I've put this back in here. It does, I'm gonna have to come back and check this later when everything's dry to see how this looks. I may wanna add another doily on this side and glue it on because that's not very pleasing to the eye. So we'll have to see how that works out. So let's move on to our next page. So I'm just going to take this out. I guess that's the best way we'll do this. So I'm gonna just open this up like this, take all the paper clips off. Yeah, that I need to trim down. Okay. All right, so this is all the pieces for this side, and these are all the pieces for this side. So on this one, we're taking our little journal cards that I've cut down. They're cut down to 2 by about 3 1/8. Yep. So I'm putting one at the top and one down here at the bottom, and they're going to go in different directions. So the tag will come out this way, and then this tag will come out to the left. So just making little pockets. I've already sewed these and the page. When you sew items like this and put them on a page, make sure you add enough glue on the sewing area so that it adheres really well. We're going to put this close to where the stitching is so that we have enough room for our tag. Just right at the edge there. And again, make sure you press down on each side of where the stitching is when you glue this down. Otherwise, it doesn't seem to catch. Might have to trim that down a little bit as well. Okay, so that's the front of this page. Let's open it up. On the inside left-hand corner, what I did was create a side pocket. I actually used the signature page from Graphic45 right here, and I cut this out to be 8 1/4 long. And then I cut around these little like scallops here. So that's what you see here, these little round scallops. Then I added some Country Craft Creation seam binding behind that, and it really just makes this whole thing kind of pop. So I really like how that turned out. And then what I did, I cut this down all the way down to this other pink piece here. So then I cut a strip of this green paper, and then I glued it onto the last pink part here. So that then gave me my whole strip here, which I'm loving this. So the green piece is 7/8 inches wide by 8 1/4. And then when I cut this piece out, I cut it to be about 7/8 of an inch as well by 8 1/4. So I'm really liking how that turned out. I just cut this journal card down a little bit to fit in here. And now I can close this better. I might go back and add maybe some more decoration later after we're done doing all of the pages together, but I'll decide that then. Okay, let's go to the back inside cover. What I have done there is used my Cricut and cut out a file folder. This measures 5 3/8 by 6 1/4. And then I, of course, folded it in half, and I had the tab on the bottom and I changed it to be on the top because I actually changed the way that I wanted this to be. I had originally cut this out so that this would be on the front, but then I decided that the darker color looks better here. So then I just punched a tab out using my tab punch, and then sewed all the way around that as well. On the inside, I used a little bit of that same paper, this blue right here. So this measures about 2 5/8 by 1 1/8. And I was just using scraps really to make that. So this is a little pocket. And then I have some little items here that I put in there from my stash. I had some digital elements that I printed out and put that in there. So you can really fill this up with whatever you want. I then added 2 stickers from the 6 by 12 sticker sheets right up here, so that it would be on the corner opposite of where the tab is, just for a little decoration. So I'm going to adhere this down on 3 sides and make that a pocket as well. I'm really just eyeballing this. Then I have a journal card that I just cut out and inked, and I'm going to slip that underneath there. Now, I didn't plan on putting a closure other than this, but you could add a Velcro dot to that, and I may if I see that I need it later on. But for right now, I'm just going to leave that as is. Okay, let's go to the back side here. And what I'm doing is creating a little pocket here, again, out of a scrap that I had after doing all this. So the width is 4 1/4, and the height is 3 5/8, again, just because it was the scrap. I did add a little bit of pink ribbon up here across the top to go with everything, and then I sewed around this little pocket. So I'm going to add the pocket here, but what I did was take one of the 4 by 6 journal cards. I scored at 1/2 inch on the left hand side, and I'm going to fold that over. And then I cut down the other side, so the front itself measures about 4 1/4. It's a little less. The piece altogether measured, again, about 4 3/4. And then I, you know, scored it, folded it over. So whatever you have left, then I took a little circle punch. I punched out a little notch there. And this is going to actually be glued down first and be like a little flip out. So that'll flip open to reveal the pocket. And then you'll have an area here where you could add photos or whatever. And then I have a little journaling card that will go into the pocket like that. So that's how this one's working out. Usually if you burnish these down really good, they stay closed, so you don't need any other magnets or Velcro dots. Like this one is staying pretty good. So now we can put that in there. It's a short one, but I'm gonna leave it popped up. Yeah, that's cute. Okay, now we can put this back in our book. Well, you know what I mean. Put that back in order. This goes here. I'm going to pull out the next piece. I don't know if that helps you guys if I'm pulling them out of the journal and doing that whole page, or if you'd rather just see one portion of it done. But it does give you a full page idea, so I guess I'm gonna go with it. Okay, so this one I have semi-done. What I did was I started out with a piece of this graph paper. I'm going to take that out. Let me take this out. So the graph paper itself, it was coffee dyed, and it measures 8 1/8 by 4 3/8. It was a scrap again. I had one of these seed packet envelopes from Target that I glued on to one side, and then I folded the paper in half. So this becomes a flip. I think I kind of showed you guys that earlier, that that's what I was going to do. I added a journal card on the front that was like a seed packet. I thought that was cute. I added a little, it was like an art graffiti type of embellishment. It's like enamel. It says grow. I did add some of the Graphic 45 paper here. I had a scrap piece. I tore it and then just glued it down. I did some rub-ons here and here, and I did quite a few or several rub-ons throughout this journal. On the inside, I took some paper that I had and I just tore the edges and glued this down after I inked it. Now this is an actual pocket. Oh, I actually have paper in there. Just a scrap piece of paper. It's all you need. Okay, so this is done. The front is done. So that's everything that I did to the seed packet envelope, and I'm going to consider that done. Now we're going to the graph paper, and I've got a few things going on here. One of the things I did was use some of my digital elements, and I printed out this like little baby postcard. It's so cute. And it measures 3 3/4 by 2 3/8. I then took another scrap of the Graphic 45 paper that had a flower on it. I just tore all around the edges, and I'm going to glue that down. And then I added this Sweet Rambles sticker from Graphic 45. So that's my insert. And I kind of like that the edges are not inked because then they mirror this white over here. Okay, so that's my insert. What I'm doing is creating a belly band. I took the Dwell in Possibilities. This was an element in Graphic 45 collection, and I cut it down. This measures 4 by 7/8. And then I took some ribbon, lace ribbon that I had, and I cut that down to be 4. And then the width on this is 1.5 because this actually fits right there in the center. How adorable is this? I'm loving that. So this is going to go across here. This will be in the back. And then I decided to use one of the Graphic 45 little butterflies. And I think I'm going to add that here. Something like that. We'll see. Could even be just on the paper in the back for decoration for when you pull this out. So we'll see how I do that. But that's the plan for this page right here. Okay, so now we have those 2 pieces done. Let's go on the inside. Okay, so on the left-hand side, I selected this from the ephemera for the collection pack. And what I'm going to do is just made like a little side tuck with this. And I'm going to tuck this piece in. Guess I can go all the way over here. And then I just have this little ephemera piece. I took it and I actually crinkled it up and then straightened it back out and then inked it, of course, because I just wanted it to have that like receipt type feel. Yeah, that's cute. We can actually put a thingy here. Okay, for the opposite side, I tore this piece out of the paper. Can't remember exactly which one it was in, but it is about 3 5/8, and the width varies because I just tore it, but it's about 1 3/8 inches wide. On the back side, I took one of the chipboard pieces from the collection. I removed a lot of the chipboard, got it down to like the basics of it, if you can see there how thick it is now. I added glue to the little tips of the butterfly wings and made this a pocket. And I'm just going to use this as a little tuck spot there. Super cute. Okay, so let's put this back in. And we'll take out the next page. Okay, so for this page, I really didn't do anything here. I might have to come back and figure out what I want to do there. The only thing I did was I had this little button brad, and I added that along with this Graphic 45 frame. I just thought it was cute. And when you see it in the journal, let me show you. The way that it lays with everything, it's peeking over the top. So it just is really cute. So I like that. And it's okay, I can leave that to where there's nothing there because you could add photos there, memorabilia, whatever. So I'll just have to go on to the next part of this one and figure out what I was doing. For the inside of this page, I took a piece of note paper that I had in my stash. I just cut down one side of the paper, and it is 3 1/4 inches wide. The paper itself is 10 3/4 inches long. I just folded it in 2 places, shorter on the bottom, longer on the top, And I used my We Are Memory Keeper envelope notcher. I rarely use this thing, but when I do, it's kind of handy to have. It's also very hard to push down. I wish they would make this easier. But other than that, I like it. So what it does is creates these little holes in your paper so that you can take the two, interlock them, and then it holds your paper together, in case you've never seen them before. So what I'm going to do, I added a sticker here to the front and a little border sticker here on the edge of the paper. On the inside, I just added a little sticker that I had in my stash that says notes with a little pen there. I just thought that was kind of cute. And I'm going to glue this, I think, on 3 sides so that if you wanted to, you could tuck something underneath there. And then at the bottom, I had this little bike with some flowers in the basket. And I just thought that would be perfect to add for a cottage life little journal. On the next page, I decided to create something a little different. I cut out 3 strips. These are 1/2 inch wide by 8 1/4 inches long. Since this page has rows of flowers, so I thought what I would do is alternate these strips on the page. So we have the little flower faces, we have the strip. The flowers, the strip, the flowers, the strip. And then what I'm going to do is put a strip across the top and the bottom. And then I'll show you how to use it. So let me get these done. You only adhere these on the top and the bottom to the page, okay? So I'm gonna open that back up. I labeled them on the back so I wouldn't mess up the order because I wanted my pattern to go all the way across the 3 strips that I made. Makes it more cohesive that way. So I'm just adding glue to the top and the bottom, and then adding it after the first full row of flowers. I'm going and covering up the second one. And I'm not trying to be exact here. I'm just gonna place them down. Okay, what I'm going to do is take a 4th strip that I have, and I'm going to line it up at the bottom and just glue that on to cover up the bottoms of the strip. So you can change the color of that if you want. Again, this is a 1/2 inch by 8 1/4, but you're not going to need all that. Now, because this is on my deckled edge, I'm going to use this to tear that off, just to keep the look, and then I can ink it. That looks good. And if you look on this side, it didn't go all the way over, but you can't really tell when you're looking at it because I wanted to line up the rows. Now I want to keep with the rows, so I'm just going to add it right at the top and then cut off any excess. I don't mind if it's shorter on the top and wider on the bottom. I'm okay with that. I'm looking more at the aesthetic of this piece than anything. I'm just weaving my ephemera into the strips there. It's just a really fun element. Okay, so this is done. Let's move to the back side. What I'm going to do here is add like a little notebook. And what we're going to do, you're going to need one piece of cardstock or decorative paper, anything you want. I'm using handmade paper here. And this measures 6 5/8 inches long, and it is 3 inches wide. At 1 1/4 inch, I folded down, and I really only did that because of all the sewing. I wanted that to be at the top. So you could really fold this down at any measurement that you want. I think 1 inch would be good. Then what I did was take some coffee dyed paper, some notebook paper, magazine page. I have like some type of art paper here, some grid paper. On the pages, I did some straight cuts. I have some deckled edges. So I just did a plethora of different edges with these papers. And you can have more than I have or less. It's up to you if you want to do this. So what I'm doing is stacking these, and then I'm going to adhere them together. And I'm making them different sizes, like lengths. And I'm going to put them in here underneath the little flap and staple them in with my tiny attacher. So now you have like a little notepad. And you could glue this on. You could attach it with a paper clip. I have this little clip I think I'll use. And then you could just flip through that, and then you could add photos and stuff down there underneath it. I still don't remember. Oh, I think I was going to add these butterflies up here. And then that also covers my little bread. Yes, that's cute. Okay. I'm gonna make a pile of done pages and then a pile of pages that we're working on. So now I'm going to pull the next one out. On this one, I was just going to add this element from the ephemera pieces right up here at the top. I thought that was kind of cute. Okay, so now you could tuck under there if you wanted to. Let's go on the inside. I cut out this little envelope with a book page, and I added this little tag from the collection and a Tim Holtz tag. I just put them together with some twine that I got from Country Craft Creations, and putting that in here. Super cute. I did add this little swirl down here in the corner. I did a rub on this side right here and down here. This is all rub on. I just added a piece of note paper here and inked it, glued that on, and then did my rub on. So I'm just going to glue this envelope down to the page. Okay, on the back side, I was looking through my stash and I found a little pocket and tag that I had digitally printed out, and so I just added the little pocket here. We're going to insert the little tag. I thought it went because of the floral and the nature feel of this. I just think it's cute. Our next page is a coffee dyed paper that I used. I did a lot of rub-ons on this. So I have rub-ons here, here, down here, the little buttons, and up here it's actually a little butterfly. I did a tone on tone here with like little droplets. And then I sewed at the top and bottom. I didn't sew all the way around because the paper was really kind kind of brittle, so I didn't want to ruin it. So I'm not going to do anything more to this. I just want some writing space, and I just like having the rub-ons there for an accent. For this page, I wanted to create a top diagonal tuck spot. So I created this little piece. It's almost like a bookmark. You ever see the corner bookmarks? So that's what it will look like when it's done. Well, it is done. I'm going to show you how to do it. So you can tuck on this side and you can tuck on this side. If you notice, I put two different types of ribbon on here just for different interest so that it wasn't the same. And then we'll tuck something up under there. So let me show you how to create these. You're going to need a piece of decorative paper that measures 4 by 8. We're going to score on the 8-inch side at 1/2 inch. Now we're going to rotate once to the left, and we're going to score at 1/2 inch. Okay, so we're back on the 8-inch side across the top, and we're going to score at 4 1/4. Okay, so when it's long ways at 1/2 inch, 4 1/4, rotate it once to the left, score at 1/2 inch. Now what we're going to do is cut out this block over here. So where our score line is across the top, just cut on that. Straight up to the center line, and then cut down and cut that out. I can barely see my lines. Okay, and then I'm gonna fold these so I can see what I got going on. Okay, so we just cut this part out. I actually need to trim that out a little bit better. Like I said, I can't see my score line at all. We're winging it here. It's just a piece of paper, but you'll be doing it the right way. So on the other side, what we need to do is just cut diagonal here to cut out this little corner. Just cut right before where the corner meets. Just like you do when we make corners for our mini albums. Just like that. Now we're going to add adhesive to these sides. We're going to fold over the other side. So fold where we scored in the middle. Fold this over. Burnish everything down. So what you have is basically a little pocket. You need to get your cutter out, and we're going to cut with the open pocket on the left. We're going to cut at a diagonal from that corner to the bottom right corner. I'll do this at an angle, hopefully, so that you can see how I have it in my cutter here. Just going to cut across that. Now one will come out open. So don't throw this away. What you can do is take this, because you're going to have decorative cardstock. Glue on the two sides here and here. You can push this down on your paper, and then you will have a tuck spot here and then a flip open here. So you could do some secretive journaling, add a little secretive photo here, and then you'll have a diagonal flip pocket. Okay, so that's another idea for you. What I have left is our little, it's like a little party hat. That is your diagonal tuck spot. Ta-da! So what I did then was I glued some lace on there to decorate it up. And that's going to go in the corner. Now we do not glue these onto the page because if somebody wants to remove this, they need to have that ability. So you don't glue this onto the page, you keep it loose. It's strong enough to hold it in there, you know. But you could do a decorative paper clip here. You could just put on a regular paper clip. It all looks fine. So you could do that. You could leave it like that. If you make your tuck item thick enough, you won't need to use a paper clip. So that's what we have there. Let's go on the inside. Again, we're going to have that little tuck spot. So I took a 4x6 journaling card. I sewed on the inside of it, actually on that blue line, all the way around, as you can see it here. I added just a little bit of ribbon, and that's going to get tucked under there. On the bottom, I added a little label sticker from the 6x12 stickers, and then some more of those little pop, little like enamel dots, but they're faux. On this side, I took that really pretty floral paper and I created little pockets. So these measure 3 5/8 by about 2 1/4, because then I took my punch, Martha Stewart punch, and I punched out a decorative edge on the top of those. And then I pulled out some little photo mats that I had in my stash, and I'm tucking those in there. Really cute. On the back side, we're going to need one piece of paper, of decorative paper. I'm actually using vellum, some gold vellum. This measures 4 1/2 inches wide by 8 1/8 inches long, and I folded at 1 1/2 and 3. So probably be better to score 1 1/2 and score at 3. Fold the left side in, burnish, fold the right side over and burnish. I cut a decorative piece that I had. This was a digital that I printed, and I just thought the florals went. So you could use some of the decorative paper and cut that down to 1 3/8 by 8. I'm going to glue that on top. Now, if you're using vellum, you could put cardstock on the back side of this before adhering it to the page, if you want it to be a little bit stronger. I'm going to try it without, just to see how well it works. So I'm just going to add my adhesive to the top and the bottom to make our belly band. And you notice I'm not worrying about, you know, this being vellum and me putting glue down. I'm not going to worry about it. Now I have decorated up a guest check with some stickers, a vintage ticket that I had in my stash, a little ribbon at the top. And then I found this digital that was already printed. I just sewed around it and inked it. I'm going to stick that underneath my little belly band. And then this is done. Now, if you notice, you can open this up and open this up. So you have a place you could do some secretive journaling. You could add little photos here if you wanted to. And if you want, you could add more decorative paper to this, all that you want. Decorate this the way that you want. I just wanted the front to be decorative so that it looks like just a flat belly band. But in fact, you can actually open this up. And you can use like a blue or black pen on the gold. It'll still show up for journaling. And I just like that. Super cute. Okay, for our next page, I used a piece of the decorative paper. This measures 1 inch by 4. I created a belly band with that, glued it here and here. This is one of the chipboard elements from the collection. I took some twine from Country Craft Creations. I tied that in on both sides. Then I glued the chipboard and the twine down onto my belly band piece. I'm telling you, I love this look. It's so cute. On the inside, I added a decorative border. It was a sticker from the collection. I added one of the ephemera postage stamps here, and then I cut this one out of the paper collection to just add here as a little tuck spot. On this side, I added one of the borders from the paper collection, but this was just paper, it's not a sticker. And I added it on 3 sides, so we have glue here, here on the back, and up here. So it's a nice little side tuck. What I thought we would do here is tuck in like this little journal card that I had in my stash. I sewed around this, but I wanted to make it like another seed packet, just to kind of continue that theme. I had this little bag in my stash, and I thought maybe I could modify it to hold this card, you know, make it a little bit smaller on the sides, and then, yeah, but this would be like a little bag, a little sack. So I'm gonna wing this. I'm gonna cut the edges off. So like if you have one of those little sacks in your stash, you know, you can modify it too. So I think what we should do first is add this down. So that's what it looks like in the end. Nice little dimensional pocket there. I'm just gonna tuck that into the side. Yeah, awesome. On the back side, I have another one of those little decorative pockets that I made. 3 5/8 by about 2 1/4 or 2 inches. Again, I'm not sure. I'm gonna make this a top tuck spot. Okay, for this page, what I did was have some of these little sacks in my stash. This one is super pretty. It already has like a lace design on it. I took that, I glued it down to the page. I folded up 1 inch of the bag and glued that down so that this makes a little pocket. I added a butterfly sticker border here across the top just to decorate that little pocket. Here is 2 of the little cut-aparts, and I left these 2 together and then just folded in half. I added a little bit of lace ribbon here across the top, so then you can add pictures on the inside and then have a nice decorative outside. And these are in the collection, so they're 2 by 3s. So that just fits in here. For the bag, I wanted another little booklet. So I took a piece of the of an extra paper that I had pulled out. I think it's from We Are Memory Keepers. But this measures 7. I scored in half at 3.5, folded it, which created your booklet. And then I added on this journaling card, these little photo corners that are stickers just for decoration. I added a little tab to the back side here. And then on the inside, you could journal, you could add a photo, you could do both, whatever your heart's desire. And then that just pops right down in there. So that's that page. So if you notice as we go along, I am showing you lots of different ways that you can decorate your pages. That's actually what I did. I took my little planning book here and I just mapped out all these different ways that you could do page designs. 2.5 pages. Awesomeness. And actually here's one too. So I wanted to show you as many different designs as possible, but this should give you lots of different ideas. You don't have to do all of them. You could do a couple of them. You don't have to do any of them. It could just be pages. It's purely up to you. Okay, let's go on the inside. Now for this side, I wanted to do a double diagonal pocket. That's my little sketch. So I was trying to do this where the paper was whole. So my starting decorative piece measures 8.25 by 4.25. All right, so I'm gonna take my pencil, make a little tick mark kind of down here, a little big tick mark, just so I can see where the end of the 4 1/8 is. I'm going to line this up in my scoreboard, and now I'm going to score from that corner down to the bottom of my tick mark. I'm going to do the other side the same way. So what I've created, I wish you could see this, is a V on the paper, right? I have a V on the paper. Okay, so as you can see, here is my tick mark, and it's actually 1/4 of an inch in from the edge of the paper. So I'm going to cut on that score line from this corner, which is the left corner, left top corner, all the way down till I get right where I'm lining up with my tick mark. So I'm going to be here, but I'm going to look. And I'm going to stop right here. I'm not going to go all the way down. Then I'm going to cut straight over, and then I'll cut up or something thereabouts. What I want to do is just leave a little bit of a space here. I hope this makes sense. So I'm cutting from both corners down on my score line or thereabouts. And I'm stopping right about the 1/4 of an inch mark. Just going to use my ruler and a knife blade to cut across that line that we made. So the piece ends up looking like a bra. Hilarious. Okay, I've inked all around it. Now I'm going to go ahead and glue this down on all 3 sides. We're gluing this on the inside here. The straight line is on the inside. Go up 2, but not over the score line. Your corners should match. Make sure that's flat. Well, if you have any overages, it's okay. We're going to just cut that off. Okay, I've cut down my paper. I'm just sliding that in here, and then I added a little sticker down here as well as a border sticker to go along there, just to give that a little something something. Now, let's see. On this side, I thought I would add the die cut from the ephemera pack. And then I cut out this little piece of coffee dyed paper, and I thought I would put it down here at the bottom. I think I might have to cut that down a little bit, just so that there's a journaling space. And then on the back of this, I thought I would add, oh, I think I need to get some new vellum. This is pretty beat up. But I thought about adding some vellum back here. It kind of makes this a pocket, and then you could just slip your picture in there. So I guess I'll go ahead and glue this piece down, so we'll have that done. So this piece measured 7 inches by 2 1/4. Just wanted a little flip out journaling spot. I'm going to add this little butterfly border here. And that is about 3 1/2 inches long. Okay, so that's good. Let me get some new vellum. To back this die cut, you're going to need a 3 1/2 by 5 piece of vellum. Just add it right on the edge, and then here. But not at the top, so that you can slip something in there. I also like the way that you can then see the cutouts. Those are cute. Okay, now we're going to work on the back side of this page. We're going to make some flip down little pockets. So you're going to need 2 pieces that measure 4 1/8 by, let's say, 3 3/4. Again, I use that decorative edge punch, but you can modify that and make it smaller if you want, depending on the decorative punch that you're using. So 2 of those, you then score on the short side at 1/2 inch. We're going to fold that over. That will be our hinge. Now, because this is a torn edge, we might have to modify the width of our piece. But I'm going to put it down, and then I'll just see if it needs it. Yeah, because that one definitely needs it. Or I guess you could leave it like that. That's kind of nice and decorative as well. Now you can glue all the way across here and put this down, or you could glue this on 3 sides, and then that makes a little tuck spot right there. I was going to do that, but I don't think I am, since I might have to trim off the edge here, and it doesn't look like it's sitting very flat. So I'm going to go ahead and glue these all the way down. You don't see that one, so I am going to go ahead. Oh, I hate to do that. I don't think I'm going to cut it, because it'll just mess up this side. Okay. Well, for the top of our flip downs, you're going to need 2 pieces that measure 3 7/8 by 1 1/2. And these will go here. But what I'm going to do is, We're going to do like little punches and do a string closure. So we're going to need some brads. We need to get some brads. But that's where we're headed. So don't glue these pieces down yet, because we can put our brad through these pieces first and then glue it down. Okay, I'm just going to make a hole here in about the center. Just gonna match these up. Okay, let's just add our twine underneath the little circles. So I cut out 2 circles. They were 6.25 to be exact. But you can use whatever size you want. So I'm using about 26 inches of twine. I picked this up from Country Craft Creations. It's nice and thin. We're going to go down and up and around. We'll just leave a little tail. We can cut this off. So you can tuck then something underneath here. And then when you open up, this flips down and this will flip down. Now we can add some more decorative paper here. We can make little pockets in here if we wanted to. So that's how you can do that one. I'm going to add additional decorative paper on the inside offline. It's going to be the same as the front. Okay, we're on the center page of our journal, and this one has lots of goodies to it. So I'm going to start on the back side of the page. So we have the front, middle, and back. Let's go there. So what I did was I wanted to create a scene that would go with this beautiful paper, you know, like the clothes. It just reminds me of someone's room. What I did was I went into Cricut Design Space. I found a little dresser that I liked. I cut that out. So I have some drawers that I'm going to be putting down here. And this was one of the ephemera pieces. And I thought it would look cute coming out of one of the drawers like that. That's going to be adorable. And then I grabbed this die cut from the ephemera pack. I added vellum to the back of that, just like I did that other one. So it's open at the top. And I'm going to put that over here. Actually, there was one more thing I was going to put on here. I thought I had a candle or something. So I'm going to have to look to see if there was anything. But I do have this rub on that has a brush that I could put up over here somehow. Maybe. I don't know. We'll have to think about that. But so this is what I'm going to put on this page. Now on the drawers, I am going to only glue down 3 sides so I can tuck things in there. So we can tuck here and we can tuck here. I'm going to see if I can get this brush to work. You know, like it's on the top of the dresser. So I'm just going to put it a little bit over the dresser. Just a little bit over here and a little bit there. And this is from the Dollar Tree. They have great rub-ons. So just peel it off really easily, and if there's some that's not coming off, just put the top back over it and then rub some more. Yeah, I like that. That's cute. So I remembered, I found what it was, the little water thing. I don't know what these are called. I'm going to put it a little bit lower again onto the dresser so it looks like it's sitting there, even over the brush there. So this is how it looks. I think it's cute. Okay, let's go on the inside. I cut this out of the signature page, and I cut it down to be 4.5 by 6-ish. I did sew around it, and then I folded it in half. So that's going to go here in the center. What we'll do is glue it down on the bottom and the top, but not anywhere else, because then when we go to bind this, it'll get bound in the center, which is what I want. Because what I'm doing then is taking some of the journal cards, which I've cut down, and these will go in our little pockets. So this will be the center, nice and colorful. And then I also had this gold vine in my stash, and I want to add this as a decorative piece. So I cut down this particular journal card to 5 1/4 by 3.5-ish. I did all around the pink border there. And then this one I cut down to 3 5/8 by 5 5/8. Okay, so I'm just gonna try and get this in the center the best I can. Doesn't have to be perfect, I guess. So when that gets sewn down the center, we actually have our little pockets. Let's see. Yeah, right there. And uh-oh. Okay, so I cut this down to be 5.5 inches tall, 3 5/8. And that will go in here much easier. Okay, and now I'm going to add my vine. Okay, there we go. Now we're going to work on the front page, and what we're going to create is a push-pull waterfall. This is going to be different than some of the waterfalls that we're already familiar with. So you're going to need 1 piece of cardstock that measures 2 3/4 by 11. Mine actually comes up a little bit short, but you're going to need 7 pieces that measure 2 3/4 by 2 3/4. These are the waterfall pages or mats, photo mats. You'll need 2 pieces of cardstock that measure 3/8 by 6 1/4. So 2 of those. And then 2 pieces that measure 3/8 by 2 1/4. So those are all the pieces that you need to create this. So then we'll take our largest piece, put it in our scoreboard, long side across the top, and you're going to score at 2 3/4, 3 1/8, 3 1/2, 3 7/8, 4 1/4, 4 5/8, 5, 5 3/8, and your 5 1/2, which is your halfway mark for folding the paper. Now, sometimes it's good to go on the back side and do these same measurements. So that's 2 3/4, 3 1/8, 3 1/2, 3 7/8, 4 1/4, 4 5/8, 5, 5 3/8, and then you have your 5 1/2. Well, we have our scoreboard out. Let's take out our long pieces, and you're going to score at 3/8 inch on each end. So 3/8. I'm just going to turn it around, it'll be easier. And 3/8. Okay, what we're going to do, we're going to have our large piece open. The non-scored end is where we're going to be working right now. So we're going to take our pieces, and you can ink them up if you want to. Now where we scored, we're going to fold over on both ends, and we're going to add some adhesive to the outside of those little tabs that we just created. We're going to add these to the non-scored end, and we're just going to go right to the edge. So come down here at the end with your tab folded over, and then place your other one at the top. Burnish those down really good. Oh, I got glue on it. Now we're going to do the same thing with our second piece. Fold over on the ends, add adhesive to the little tab, then add that to our non-scored end, right to the edge. I'm going to let those dry a moment, and we're going to get a decorative piece for the center. Okay, I've cut out a decorative piece for the center here, and this measures 1 7/8 by 5 3/8. Just going to go all the way down to the bottom and then center that. Okay, what we're going to do is take one of our little strips. We're going to put it underneath the little band that we added. So like that, okay? Bring it down to the bottom. Actually, I want to get rid of that right now. Okay. Yeah, this is going to be definitely too big, but we're going to fold over one side. So hold it down in the center and fold over one side. Now when you do not want it to go beyond the other side. You want to keep it within the 3/8 inch right here. So see that piece? So now I can actually cut this other one down. So let me take this out. Okay, so I cut it down to 1 1/8 inch. So I'm folding this piece over. I'm taking this piece and I'm going to fold it over to the left. And what we're doing is just kind of, you know, crisscrossing it, crossing it over top the other one. And you're going to glue those together. But don't glue it to the strap. You want it to be movable. I got way too much glue on it. So you want that, once you fold it over and add adhesive, to be able to move easily up and down this little strip. So let's do the second one. And now this one can move freely. Now you're going to add adhesive to our little pieces that move right on the end. Make sure they're at the end. Okay, so add your adhesive to the top and fold over your piece. Now you're going to fold over onto the first score line. Okay, and then burnish. And then if I hold the bottom here, I should be able to push this. Oh, I forgot. I wanted us to now fold each of our score lines. I wanted to do that before I adhered that. So if you haven't done it yet, don't do it yet. Burnish and fold on all of your score lines. So see, it should move easily. Okay. Now what we do is take our squares and we're going to add adhesive in between the two score lines. So add adhesive here, add your card up to but not over the score line, add your adhesive here, add your card up to but not over the score line, add your adhesive here, and keep repeating. So I added it right down the center. Don't add too much. You don't want it to go oozing out. And since my cardstock is double-sided, I'm going to use the lighter color on top here. So as you can see, I'm going up to the score line there, but not over it. And then when you have it where you want it, make sure it's even on the sides. Hold it down and burnish. See how that's oozing out? I put too much. Too much. It can interfere with the mechanism if you put too much. Okay. So then just repeat. Now the top one, we have like that 1/8 of an inch gusset right there. So just put that at the top there, just like the others. Okay, now we can fold back on our photo mat and give that a creasing. Now when you get to these last couple ones, this won't lay flat, okay? So just be really careful with it. That's where this one is a little bit different. If you fold it over like this, like an L, then it works for you. You can get in there and burnish. Okay? Okay, so when you have the 1/8 of an inch gusset at the top, if you flatten that out a little bit, it'll end up showing some of the decorative paper at the bottom. And if you push on the piece right here, your waterfall will work. And then you pull it back. So you see what's happening is it's going up these little tracks that we made. That's why you don't want them to be super tight. Pretty cool, huh? I love that. So if you wanted to, you could put additional tab on here. I don't know if I'm going to do that yet or not. So after that, then I'm just going to adhere this down to my page. Now, if you want, you could put decorative paper on the tops of these photo mats. Now that we have all of our pages done, we need to create our cover for our traveler's notebook. So we're going to do a file folder cover. I haven't done one of these in a long time, and I thought that would be fun to do. And to create that, you can use a regular, like, household file folder, or you could use a decorative file folder. Now, I was going to use this one because it was nice and thick, but what I've found is that when I score it, it actually ends up cracking, and then it just ends up kind of cracking all the way through. Now, it doesn't come through the other side, but still, I found that that was really not a good thing to use. So I'm going back to my everyday file folder. So pull out one of your file folders. You can use one from the Dollar Tree. You can use one from the office supply store. Whatever you have on hand will work. The first thing you want to do is go ahead and burnish on all of the score lines in your file folder. Now, if you're using a decorative file folder, it typically only has one score line down the center of the file folder. In that particular case, you're going to need to make your own score marks. And I have a video on that I'll share with you. For those that buy the decorative file folders, you may only find one score line down the center. So that's where we're going to need to create our own score lines. So what you want to do is line up your file folder center score line in your scoreboard. And I've done that here. And then we're going to score at 5.5 inches, 5 3/4. 6 should be your center, and that should already be scored. And then you're going to score at 6 1/4. Now that we have burnished all of our score lines, we're going to open our file folder. You're going to, if you're using a scoreboard, put it in all the way. You're going to put in the left side to the edges, and we're going to score at 3 7/8. To make this a little bit easier, we're going to put the last score line at the 6 mark, just to make it easier. And then we're going to score at 10 7/8, at 11, and 11 1/8. Now we're going to rotate this one time to the left. Then we're going to score at 8 1/4. So I know our file folder is going off the scoreboard, or however you're doing it. So just do this as much as you can all the way down, and then we can flip it around and do the other side. And I would do it a couple times just to get it in there. And I'm going to turn this around, So you would turn it around and then flip it and then score the rest away. Let's go ahead and fold on the burnish lines that we just made. I made a couple extra on this side because we want to leave just a little room for expansion. We do have a fluffy journal to put in there. Now we're going to add a few more score marks so that when we put in our journal insert, well, it's actually going to become the whole journal. This is going to fold over, and then this part will fold over as well. If we add a few more score lines, it helps with the expansion of the journal. So that's what I've done here. And I wanted to give you those score lines. So with our first score line here on the right hand side, so we should have 2 more after that, which I think you only need the first 2, but score at 7 1/4, 7 1/2, and 7 3/4. Now I did make another one at 8, but I'm not so sure that one's needed. So now you can go ahead and fold on all those score lines that we just made. And then when we put this in and around, it just helps square kind of things off, right? Yeah. Because once I take the rubber band off this, it's going to get big. So we're going to need this expansion. Now we're going to do some cutting. So at the bottom, we have that score line. And on the left-hand side, we want to cut up on the score line, up to the score line going across. Now, when you cut this, you may want to actually kind of cut out the score line. So cut on each side of the score line. I'll show you here in a moment, because we don't want the pocket part to interfere with the way that it folds. Okay, so if you see there, I'm kind of just cutting out the score line itself, like that. So when these go up, they should not interfere at all with the folding. We're going to cut out these score lines all together, so you only need to cut on this one and that one. Then we're going to come over here to the right. We're going to cut out this entire section here where we have all these score lines. So we're going to keep this big one. Okay. So it looks like this when we're done cutting everything out. And what I would do next is kind of fold these flaps up, see if they interfere with the score line at all. If they do, then I would trim them down some more. Like, I think that one needs trimmed a little bit. Checking this one. That looks good. And the last one. Yep, that looks good too. Okay. Okay, now I wanted to come back and talk to you about measurements for the decorative paper that goes on our cover. While I'm going to give you my measurements, I would recommend that you double check your measurements before you cut them out. You may have cut something different. You may have scored something a little bit different. Your file folder may not be the same size that I'm using. They should be, but you never know. So I just would recommend that you pre-measure before cutting, even though I'm providing you the measurements. So on the front, the piece that I'm going to be using measures 2 3/4 by 8 1/8. I've created this to where I have a really tiny border going around. Because my file was pink, which goes with the collection, I really just didn't want too much of that pink popping out. So I made it the smallest border around there that I could. You could certainly change yours to be 1/8 of an inch all the way around. You could change yours to be 1/4 of an inch. Make it the way that fits your design. So even though this is 2 3/4 inches wide, I do have to go in and cut this out. So what I'll do is line this up on the page, and then I'll come behind it. I'll take my pencil and trace this out, and then I'll cut down to where it gives me a nice border on the front. So that's how I'll be doing that. I'm not going to do that with you because I want to get through the measurements. So that's how I'm going to cut this down. If you don't want to have to worry about that, then just cut off the tab, and then you can measure across and just put your decorative border there. I'm wanting to have a wrap cover, so that's why I'm using it this way. I kind of like that it's a little bit different there. So this is your wrap piece here. The same measurements will be on the front as is on the back side. And again, it will have to be cut down if you don't cut it straight across. Okay? The left flap front is what I'm calling it. This measures 4 1/8 by 8 1/8. And then on the back, this measures 4 3/4 by 8 1/8. When we open this up, now this piece here, I just used a scrap that I had. So this measures about 3/4 inch by 8 1/8. It's actually a little less than that. Again, I'm reminding you, please do your measuring. Don't always just go by mine because yours might be just slightly different. You never know. But I want to give you something to go off of. Okay, so then we have our first pocket. The front pocket piece measures 4 11/16 by 3 1/8. The back decorative piece measures 4 11/16 by 5 1/2. I had it go a little bit further down into the pocket. For this section, you're going to need one piece here that measures 4 by 3 1/8, and you're going to need 2 of those. One for the front and one for the underside. You will also need one magnet set. So I have them both here, just waiting to be placed. So you're placing one here, and then you're going to put one on the first piece that we have on this side. Okay? And then, of course, use something to cover it up, like a journaling card or a sticker or something. This piece here is what I'm going to use to cover that magnet. So on the back of this portion, what we're doing is creating a little bit of a waterfall. So you're going to need three pieces that measure 4 1/8 by 6 5/8. You're going to rotate it to the long side across the top and score at 1/2 inch, and then burnish and fold all of those, and then you'll have your pages to create your waterfall. And then after we flip this up, what I decided to do was use some scraps that I had. So this piece measures 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. And it will go at the last photo mat. I'm going to butt that up against each other like that. And then I cut a separate piece so that I could create a little pocket down at the bottom. Now this measures 4 1/8 by 1 1/2. So that will go here. And then I have this little ephemera piece that I'm going to put on top of that. Like that. Okay, lots of pattern there. I may put something more solid here to separate the two, but right now that's how I have it mapped out. So that's this section. On the left flap, this piece here, I did something a little different. It previously looked like this, and then I cut that part off so I didn't have to mess with having to figure out the measurements. And you can do the same thing, just like I was saying over here you could, but in this case, I actually want that. I don't know, I think it looks neat. So here I just made it easy. I cut this off. So now my measurement for the flap is 3 3/16 by 8 1/8. And then on the back side, I cut my piece to be 3 3/16 by 5 1/2. And then my pocket piece is 3 3/16 by 3 1/8. So those are all the measurements that I have for this piece. Okay, so just to recap, this one to the right is a pocket. So you would add adhesive down each side to glue that down after you've glued the back decorative piece down. This is not a pocket, even though it looks like it. It'll be a magnetic closure. So that'll be really nice. And then you will have a pocket. With this one, you'll glue on 3 sides and put that down. On the last one, I'm not quite sure how I'm going to decorate that. On this one, again, it is a pocket. So you will glue down the 2 sides and put that down. And that's all your pocket pieces. Now, for the first one, let's go back here a moment. We did make this a little flip as well, but because of the piece that I'm using to decorate that, I'm going to cut off the piece. So I'm just going to get rid of that. So you can decide whether to keep this as a little pocket and you would glue on 2 sides, or if you are using the same piece that I'm using here, you may want to consider cutting this off, because I really just like that. It's so pretty. So I'm just going to cut this off. So that's how I'm going to decorate the cover, and I'm going to do most of this offline. I may do this one with you because of a little bit of complexity there. But otherwise, everything is pretty straightforward. Okay, that's it. I'm going to go ahead and finish the rest of this offline. Maybe put some things in the pockets. I think that was the perfect item to put there to go along with the greens underneath it. Okay, I'll be back. Okay, so I am back and I have added all of my decorative paper. I even added a few strips here where we are doing the extra scoring for ease of folding around the corner. These are less than 1/4 of an inch thick and then 8 1/8 inches long. So I did 3 of those. I added some little elements here, little tuck spot, some lace, and then over here just added a little border strip, added on this ephemera piece, and made it a little tuck spot. And I think that turned out really cute. And then added a frame here and this little banner there. So I like how that looks. And then here I just added a tag and some lace on that pocket. So it is all ready. I'll put that on the back. It's all ready for us to add our signature to it. So in the spine, I added some clear packing tape to strengthen it. But then I also found in my stash that I have some adhesive fabric. It's already sticky back. And I thought about adding that down the spine as well. I thought that might be neat because this blue jean color is perfect for the collection. So I thought I might try that and see what I think. It would add some strength to the spine as well. I think I have the piece too wide. I would need to cut it down, but I don't know, I'm kind of liking that. So let me cut this down and then I'll put that back on. Okay, so that's how it turned out. I do have a little seam here because my piece is only 6 inches long, but when you consider the signature is going to be there and it's basically going to be pretty fluffy, I don't think that's going to be shown much, and it's okay. I don't mind. So now we're ready to actually start preparing to add our signature. What you're going to need is some thread. I'm using this Egyptian cotton crochet thread that I picked up from Hobby Lobby. You can use a curved or straight needle, but you're going to need one. You'll also need an awl or a pokey tool. And of course, you're going to need your signature. And I even made a little template. And to do that, you just cut this out. I made mine 2 inches wide and scored it in half at 1 inch. It is 8 1/4 inches long. I pre-marked it at 2 1/16, 4 1/8, and 2 1/16. And those are exact measurements, but you don't have to be exact. I just did it because I was sitting at the computer and my calculator was open. You can just punch 3 holes in here and add your signature. It doesn't have to be exact, but that's what we're going to do. I'm just kind of showing you what it looks like. We're going to go there in the center or about where our second hole was. The more I think about it, the more I think I'm just going to go in the center of this area, because this is 7/8 inches wide if we go from cardstock to cardstock. So I may do that because I was just going to do it on the second score line here, but I think I'm just going to do it in the center. So what you would do once you have your template made, you would place this down over the area that you need it to be. You would center it up. That's what I'm doing here, to top and bottom. And then you would take your awl, and where your mark is, you would punch through. So I have my hole right here in the center. Let's see where that comes out. Yeah, it's close to the second one. I'm good with that. And then you make your other 2. Just added a binder clip to hold that there. I want to make sure this is centered. Then we go ahead to our next spot, poke our hole through there. You want to make sure you go all the way through, and then do your last one. And there you can see the holes on the back side. Now I actually plan on putting lace over this if it works out, so it will cover where the holes are. Okay, now we can get our thread ready here, if I can find the end. So what I usually do is take 3 lengths of whatever it is that I'm going to be sewing a signature into. So we have 1, 2, 3. You don't usually need that much, but it helps. And I think I'm gonna use my curved needle today. Let's set this aside for a moment. Now, when you're poking holes into your signature pages, you could do a few at a time, or you could do it all together. Most of the time, I usually just do it all together. I've never had any problem that way. Just make sure that your pages are exactly where you want them to be. You know, if you have some short ones, make sure they're in the right spot. Make sure things that you don't want to be poked are out of the way. And you add your template. Now, I don't often use one of these. I'm just doing it because I'm showing you guys. But this is how you do it. Then you take your pokey tool and you go all the way through. See that? The same holes that you did already with the cover. This is so thick. I think what I'll do is switch this around. Perfect. Okay. Just gonna put this on here just to hold it together. Okay, now I go through the center first. So find your hole, put your needle through, pull it all the way through, and then leave a tail over here. And then put that through your cover. Okay. Now those are going to get lined up. I'm going to turn this upside down because it'll be easier. Now I'm going to go through the bottom hole of the cover. Now let's go through the bottom hole on our signature. If you're finding you're having a little trouble, just do a few pages at a time. I think that's what I'm going to end up doing here. Don't worry if it's loose. We can tighten it up in the end. Now, some people go back through the center. I don't normally do that. I usually just go straight up to the top and then back through. Let's see if we can do it. Now, when you go back through the center, you want to make sure you're not going down into the thread. You want to go pull the thread down and then go into the hole. I think it's because I'm using this needle. Okay, hold on. Okay, I switched needles. I think that might be the problem. I haven't used that one in a while, and this is so fluffy. I'm having a little difficulty. Remember to keep your tail. I'm sorry I can't show you any better way, but I think I do have a video on my channel that shows how to do this. Okay, so I'm through the signature. I'm going to go down through the cover again. Back up through the cover. And now I'm going to go through the signature. Okay. Wow, I have never had that much problem before. Oh my goodness. Okay, so now you take your ends, you kind of pull them in the opposite direction because you want to make sure it's tight, but not so tight that you're ripping everything. You don't want to rip it. I usually like do that. And if that sounds like a good tight sound, then you're good to go. And then we take our string and we can tie a knot in the center. And you can either cut this off or you could leave it dangle and add a dangle, and I think I'll do that. Okay, so offline I did add my little dangle down here. What I did was take 2 of the stickers from the sticker sheets. I put them back to back. I laminated them and then cut around the element. And then I just tied that on with a knot with the 2 strings that were there. I think that turned out really cute. I also went ahead and did some decorating on the cover. I added 2 laces that I had in my stash, one that looked like this, and it came down and over the side. I really like the little scallop that it added to the edge. And then I added this ribbon with pearls down the center over top of that, and then glued that down. So I really like how that looks. There it is on the back side. And then on the opposite side, you know, where we have our score lines so that it folds over, I added 3 rosettes from some decorative trim that I had in my stash as well. And I just individually cut out 4 of the rosettes. It comes in a strand like this with net fabric behind it. So I just cut all around one little rosette. And I did that 4 times. And then I glued those on to the side of my cover. So that's what it looks like when you open it. Really pretty. I like that a lot. I'm really liking how this is all turning out. On the front cover, I took one of the chipboard pieces. I took a lot of the chipboard off the back so it would be very thin profile. I glued that down, added a little glitter dot here because that color matched this on this side. So now we're going to do the cover together, and I'm going to use an eyelet and a washer. And I'm only using a washer because I have it on hand, so I'll just use that. And I'm going to use this one that has more of a surface to it, a flat surface. I really like these. They're kind of neat. Instead of using the traditional smaller type of eyelet, Because this eyelet had a very tall shaft, as you see here, I took one of the chipboards. It already had a hole in the end. It's this little one. So I just made it a little bit bigger so my eyelet would fit in there. So now that's in there. And then when I go to put it on to my cover, it won't like be very loose because we've added thickness to the eyelet itself. If I were to take this, punch it through, as you can see by this eyelet, that if I would have closed the eyelet down, it would be loose in there. So this way, because I've added thickness to it, you won't get a lot of that breaking of the ends and everything. And then that's why I'm using a washer. I do want that to be nice and soft in there. So let's give this a try. I already have my We Are Memory Keepers. What is this? It's Crocodile 2. And what I'm going to do is just pick a spot and make my hole. Now on the front, I want to be able to read this quote. I really like that. So I'm going to go above it. Probably more right here. If you follow the curve of our little tab, I'm going to go right in this direction. So right about here. So I'll punch my hole first. Now I can't really show you me punching the hole, but I'm sure you get the idea. Okay, so I just estimated, punched my hole. All I did was make sure that I wasn't running into the text on this side. So now I'm going to take my eyelet as is with the extra chipboard piece. I'm going to switch this down to the little eyelet setter. I already have my dials in the right setting. And what I'm going to do is take the washer and go ahead and put it down on this little eyelet piece. And then I'll put the rest of my piece over it. And we'll go ahead and get that set. So then on the back side, that looks really nice. And there we are on the front. So when we wrap this around, we have this nice little design there. And to decorate up the back side, what I did was just added this little blue sticker to the back, just so that it kind of goes with the top part here. Did a little inking around there. And now it doesn't stand out so much. So as you can see, it is so full that even though we made these extra score lines, it really does fill that up. You probably could even make some more score lines if you wanted to, and then bring the cover over further to this side. But that's up to you. If you want, you can add more decorative pieces up here. I haven't decided if I'm going to or not. I kind of like this whole look that I have going on. And then what I'm going to do for the actual closure is use some of this sheer ribbon that I have in my stash. I thought the purple and green combination color, probably see it better here, just went really well with this particular collection here. So what I've done is just doubled up the ribbon. I have about 24 inches, maybe a little less than that. So then you could take your two ribbons. One gets wrapped around one way, one gets wrapped around the other way. You bring them in the front, and then you tie a bow. So that's how I created the Cottage Life Journal. And that concludes our video. So thank you all for joining me. And I hope that you create one of these. And if you do, please tag me. I would love to see it. Thanks a lot, everyone.